Did everyone have a chance to sign in? All right, did you have any questions about the previous lectures since Dr. Farkas is just getting set up? No questions? Okay, let me ask you a question. What's the term for degeneration of the distal axonal component? Wallerian degeneration. Okay. Can you name one of the molecules that oligodendrocytes secrete that inhibits axonal regeneration?
Is it the
Oh, yeah, but I mentioned three factors on the slides. There were three factors that inhibit axonal growth because oligodendrocytes release a factor that inhibits axonal sprouting or axonal outgrowth. No-go? Exactly, no-go is one. Okay. What's the pair of terms that describes information flow into the nerve cell and out of the nerve cell? Afferent information. So, which pair of terms describes axonal transport up and down the axon? And anterograde, right? Down the axon. So the terminal is anterograde and backwards. And on the terminal, the cell wall is retrograde. Okay. Hi. What are the? Can you name three factors that influence the success of regeneration in the peripheral nervous system? Mechanica, right? What do you mean with mechanica? Yeah, if you have Schwann sets there that can sort of be used as a guide, or you have the endoneurium that can be used as a guide, right? That's possible. Okay. Can you name another factor? Biochemical. What does that mean? What would be biochemical factor? Yeah, facilitate. So the Schwann cells would facilitate outgrowth, right? Okay. And then just doing a little bit of work.
Keep on.
And what's the third factor? That means if the surgeon can suture the pieces that were cut by episiotomy, right, or the endoneurium that was cut. Right, exactly. That's good. Good. What's another factor? If you have a motor neuron and the motor neuron axon is cut either in the spinal cord or it's sectioned out and cut when it forms a peripheral nerve, which motor neuron has a better chance of regeneration? The one in the peripheral nerve, right? Yeah, that's straightforward. Oh, yes. What happens to the myelin during Wallerian degeneration? What?
Does the macrophage like get rid of them?
Yeah, the macrophages come in and eat it up, and it forms these. What was the term that I mentioned? It forms what kind of macro-related appearance? Myelin debris, yeah, but there was another term, myelin, starts with an O.
Oh, ovoid?
Yeah, myelin ovoid, right. Okay. Okay, what's the difference between a Schwann cell and an oligodendrocyte myelinating axon? The oligodendrocyte does what? It's in the CNS, that's true, but okay, so CNS has oligos and Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system, but what are the, can you name, well, that's one difference, can you name two other differences? Okay, good, and then I think I talked about that maybe earlier in the neuron lecture that the Schwann cells, you have these unmyelinated axons that are sort of squeezing into the Schwann cells. It's basically make an indent between myelinated and unmyelinated fibers, right? Okay. Was there anything else that we talked about? Yes, that's a question.
In terms of regeneration, right? Doesn't the Schwann cells like increase it in the oligodendrocytes?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. That's actually, yeah, that's true. I wasn't even thinking about that. That's a good difference as well, right? Exactly. The Schwann cells secrete facilitating or trophic substances that make the axons grow out, whereas the oligodendrocytes do exactly the opposite. They inhibit outgrowth. Yes, good point. Yes, good. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's I think pretty much it. Just trying to think about my exam questions that I know.
That's coming up.
Yeah, coming up soon.
All right, while that's going up, and we have no more questions. Or, yeah, okay.
All right, thank you very much. See you Wednesday.
When do you guys have that at 4 o'clock? Because I'm gonna need about another 20 minutes based on all the stuff that happened, so I just wanted to know, are you guys in another class? No? So I'm gonna just use that extra time that we're usually here. So we'll stay a little bit after 4, but we'll still get our breaks and stuff. I just wanna make sure it's not rushing you through anything. I know it's a little warm and we're a little tight, but just bear with us, all right? While I get everything up and running, it's gotta take a moment. But while it's doing that, we can always have a good time. Good time is important. Now that this is up, I can put my stuff in. Wait till it storms down. All right, so thank you very much for participating. Your education is important to me, not because you're paying for it, but because you'll be using it to save lives. You may not think so. But I've been around long enough, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? All right, fine.
This is the other one, the other mic.
This is the one? Yeah. Can I bring it over here? All right, I've been around long enough to know that we pretty much live in 3 degrees of separation. There's somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows you, that I know, whether you realize it or not. And it's important to me that you learn what you learn, because one of these days you're gonna be seeing somebody that I know, and I don't want you to hurt them. And as funny as that may seem, it has happened. And I didn't care for it. It didn't make me feel good to know that they would say to me, but didn't you teach them? So what did they know? So I take it to heart to make sure that I disseminate information that hopefully you will use to save a life, and not using appropriately. And so with that, I ask you these questions and I do these things not because I'm just trying to make you work hard. I'm trying to make you realize that lives can be hurt or saved by what you do. But it starts now. You have to build that behavior now. So, anybody can tell me what the dental lamina, I'm still waiting for this thing, because it's got to go through its whole process. Let me see, I think it might be there. Anybody tell me about the dental lamina? What is it?
Tooth development?
Tooth development, what do you mean? What do you mean? Say it again, you got quiet on that part.
Like the development of the tooth?
Development too, that's big. That's like me saying, what's a human? And you got like all these parts. So dental lamina, it does something specific. What is it doing? You're in the right place, and I want you, but I'm just trying to get you, and anybody else can help out. It's what? It's epithelial tissue. Comes from where? Not quite, but it comes from somewhere. Okay, we're working with it. Now, go ahead.
Does it come from the ectomesenchyme?
No, it doesn't. It is epithelial tissue. Ectomesenchyme is not epithelial tissue. That's connective tissue, but that's good. Now, I will be going through all these, but I want to make sure that I saw everybody, a large number of you, write down the exercise, but y'all do these things like, what you got? Can I get that and copy it and put it in here too? And that's what we do. But that's not good enough if you can't remember what you wrote or what you put down. Because you're not going to save anybody's life just because you went through the motions. I'm not here about going through the motions. I could care less about a lecture. Because I don't need a lecture to tell you what you really need to know in order to pass a board, but you really need to know to save someone. But I know you need the lecture so you can memorize all this stuff. I'm not trying to get you just to memorize. I want you to remember, and there are things that you have to memorize and put it together and build exercise of knowing how to keep it here in your cranium. The gray matter that you use because you think it doesn't work well except for what you want it to work. It works if you exercise it. And I want you to do that. So we're going to be going over things like the cap stage, the dental lamina, right? And I just wanted to touch base with that. That's going to take too long with this stuff. Give me a second, I'm sorry.
You need a blood pressure first?
No, it's just, this is what you call have to being able to switch in the moment's notice. I'm always prepared, but I'm not always necessarily ready because I gotta get it ready to be prepared. I know that they're gonna call us out anytime they want to, switch us up, but I have to be ready to do that. So that's fine, but thank you so much. So, cap stage, we're gonna go with dental follicle. Anybody know what the dental follicle is? Come on, guys, don't make me feel like I'm by myself.
Does it give rise to the supporting tissue?
It gives rise to the supporting tissue, absolutely. You're gonna need to remember that stuff, right? I'm gonna go through, what about HERS? What is that an acronym of? Right, Hertwig's epithelial root sheet. You know why they call it HERS? Because it ain't his. They call it HERS because it's what's going to create something. Now, who out of the two groups in this world creates things?
Women.
There you go. So treat them right. Because they will create something and raise it to come after you. Especially if you don't treat them right. And I've seen it too many times, unfortunately. I don't like my daddy. Why? Because mommy said so. So just be mindful. It's all about treating them right. I hope this thing is gonna pull up. All right, so we're gonna go through that. So the first two lectures you had already, but this is like a recap. So the first two lectures are gonna be fibroblastics, cytoskeleton, and bone, but you had those. I'm not gonna recap, I'm not gonna go over it specifically because they did a really good job, but I want you to understand how it all comes together and why we use it in this area of head and neck, oral cavity and all. So why is it important? Because you learn about all the different pieces and the microtunnel and the microfilament, but you don't know why it's being used. And so we're gonna just kind of run through that process. So the first thing is the cytoskeleton. You have like three areas, microtubules. What are microtubules? What is its purpose? Come on, I know you had that already, so you have to. Say it again. I mean, it's gonna have some, but microtubules is specific for something, because remember, the title is fibroblast, right? I'm just giving you, but then it says cytoskeleton. So microtubules comes and is coming from where? And what is it doing? Like, go ahead. It's what? Structural support, because skeleton is your structural support. Now, as beautiful as you look, I strip all of that skin and muscle and vasculature and all that stuff, and you're nothing but a big bag of bones, right? And then people are like, don't look so good. But it needs that so that you can look good, because it's what you build off of. So the microtubules is something that is the support of that cell. And what is it made from? Let me give you the word. What protein? Tubulin. So you need that. Now, interestingly enough, you may think, what's the big deal? I learned all this micro stuff. But see, when you get to a point where something goes wrong, and you need to figure out what's going on with that cell, you need to know what made that cell, so that you can look for it to see if that is that cell, or is it something else? And so tubulin is a protein that is gonna build the supporting aspect, so that if something goes awry, we can search for it through all kinds of antigen processes, and that's how we get research. So it's valuable. You may not see much of it when you're practicing, but when something goes down, you can talk to your patients about things that helps them see that you care and understand more than just, I'm a dentist. Because that's all you're gonna get. That means, you know when people say you're a dentist? Not when you say it, but when people say it, they're saying, oh, you're just like the mechanic that's fixing my car. But he didn't pay what you paid. Oh, it's just a dentist. I'm just going to see my dentist. Just fixing my teeth. No, I'm fixing your life. So you need to understand that. So you got the microtubules, and it has the tubulin. That's going to give your supporting structure. And then you have microfilaments. And what's a microfilament? I'm just running through this quick. This is stuff that I know you should have had, so You should be able to hit me with the chorus line when we start the band and be okay. And maintain the shape and what else? And moves things around. That's how that cell moves. See, as amazing as you look, stuff got to move around. That's why you work out. Because when you stop working out, stuff moves down. Because gravity takes over. And then as beautiful as you are today, 50 years from now, you're going to be like, I should have kept up. Because things are starting to get down. Because it's got to move. But if you keep it active, it can move and stay within shape and stay within place. And so what protein is in microfilaments? Actin and myosin. And what do? Contract, causing the cell to move. Now, what other tissue you know does a lot of contracting? Muscle. So those are seen a lot in the muscle. It's in all cells, but it's definitely seen in the muscle cell. And when something goes wrong in the muscle, because you get a tumor, and we can't figure out what that tumor is, you know what? We do antibodies and say, let's put some actin, antigen, and see if it lights up. And then we know it's a muscle tumor. That's how this all stuff comes together. It's not just, you know the natural and the norm so you can understand the abnormal. The abnormal is what you are here for. You're not here for the norm. Ain't nobody going to anybody's doctor when they're healthy. No, except for women because they force you. You start at 13. Gotta go to the doctor. Why? Because you gotta check things out. And then you'll get used to that, and then you get with your guy, and then you force him to go to the doctor. And he's like, no, I ain't trying to go there. I ain't gotta go through all that. If you don't go, then this house is gonna fall apart because you ain't making no money. I ain't trying to be broke. You better go. And so that's how it goes. So the bottom line is that's the microfilaments, and it has actin and myosin to move the cell. And so you have to understand it because you gotta know what's going on in the cell. See, you're learning some stuff. You just think you're just learning stuff. It actually plays a role. The cellular process is what you don't see to give you what you do see. And do you know what goes on in the cell? What are the organelles in the cell? Give me some organelles. Mitochondria. I know everybody learned that one. What else? Golgi apparatus. What else? Rough ER. Smooth ER. Lysosomes. What else? The nucleus, right? You know what's in the nucleus? Yeah, you know what's in there? DNA. Oh my goodness. And we're using DNA today to determine where you come from. Because most of us don't know where we come from. We don't know where you come from. You know we're here. Where you come from. And so we use DNA to do that. And the DNA needs to be made, right? So it needs what? What it needs to be made? It needs something to move it along, right? So DNA is going to produce what? It's RNA. And RNA is going to run through the ribosomes, and it's going to be packaged, and it's going to go through rough ER, and then rough ER, then it's going to end up going into the Golgi to be packaged to make protein. But it's got to go through the process of making pyruvate, and then coax A, and then go to the Krebs cycle, and then come out with ATP. But that's where you learn it. Where you learn that? What class? But y'all don't like biochem. You're like, but if you understood how it impacted what you do, you would see biochem in a whole different way.
Maybe you should do biochem.
Because it is what moves everything to either make you living and alive or sick and dead. It's the cellular process that determines whether you're going to have cells that are functional or cells that are dysfunctional. And when they're dysfunctional, we call them cancer cells. But you gotta understand it. And so this histology is just a picture of the movement of biochemistry so that you can end up seeing physiology. And then when something breaks down, you get to pathology. But in order for it to break down, something has to interact with it, and we call that microbiology. That's how this goes. And when you start to understand how real this is from what you don't see, you'll start to see it different. Dr. Ferguson. I'm good. Yes, I did. So, I'm in class right now, but yes, I did. So real time. Thank you. Yeah. So that's what happens when we get emergency patient. They forget I go to class. I apologize for that. But yeah, so that's how you see it. So you work through that. So here's where the cancer issue comes in. So we cover microtubules, we know that's a structural part. We cover microfilaments, that we know that's the action, contractile, and giving you the shape. And then we come to intermediate filaments. Now what's intermediate filaments? Come on, people in the back. I know you guys are the ones that I look at the test and I'm like, who's in the back? I want you to interact because it will stick with you mentally. That's how you play sports. You can't win if you're not in. So, come on, intermediate filaments, someone in the back.
Is lamins one?
Say it again.
Lamins?
Laminin?
Yeah, lamins.
Not really, but it's an integrated process of all of that. We'll get to that. Intermediate filament, what is that? So let's look at this. You got the cell and you got the microtubules, the skeletal structure, it builds all stuff, and then you got the microfilaments that's gonna give it movement. But then you have to have something in between all of that to fill it up. It's kind of like you got bricks, and in order to build a building, you gotta put something in between the bricks, which is cement. So you got intermediate filament because it's filling up in between what's between the microtubules and the microfilaments. So what things do we find in intermediate filaments? This is important because this is how you're going to find out how you stay alive and how we help keep you alive. Come on, somebody in the back. Keratin? Close. Give me another word in front of that. Cytokeratin. So good. I just want you to bring it all together. So cytokeratin is an intermediate filament. And that intermediate filament protein is how we determine when we have a dysfunctional epithelial cell. Because sometimes we can't tell. When they start to divide and they're dysfunctioning, it looks like anything. Because remember, all of this stuff is like stem cell process. They can make almost anything from the DNA process. So how do we know where this comes from? So we need to see the primary of this issue from the cellular tissue when it's taken out of the body and people like me look at it and we're like, that's a lot of stuff going on. How do we know where it's originating from? So we actually do some antibody studies called histochemical staining, and we put cytokeratin on it, and then we say, oh, it lights up. It's coming from the epithelium. That's one. Give me another tissue that would have intermediate filament. What's another intermediate filament? Say it again.
Is it vimentin?
Vimentin, absolutely. And where will we see that? Yes, you can, but it's under something else. Because remember, if you remember what I told you, muscle tissue really is. Muscle tissue is really connective tissue. It's just specialized connective tissue. So vimentin is what we will see in connective tissue if we don't know what's going on. These things will be very beneficial to you over time because then you don't have to memorize it all. You'll understand how it comes together, right? So that's generally what we're gonna see. And then you have fibroblasts. Fibroblast is the cell that makes what? Now that should be a chorus, like fibroblast makes, there you go, that's what I'm talking about. Don't be afraid, this is where you learn, this is where you make the mistakes, so when you go out there, you're not. I'm telling you, I was in your shoe. I was sitting right there and didn't have any PowerPoints. None of that, they just did what I'm doing right now. They came up and they started talking, and most of them didn't talk the same language, so I didn't understand them. And so I just sit there and listen real hard, and then ask my classmate, what'd she say? What'd she say? Oh my goodness, I gotta write this. And then we got what we call transcribers, you know, people, note-taking people, so that somebody to write this stuff down, because like, they're going fast, and I don't know. So I had to read the book. And that's how I took it, because I was like, I gotta stay up. But you don't have to do all of that. I want you to still read the book, because I want you to understand that that's where the information is coming from for you to take your boards. It ain't coming from my PowerPoints. My PowerPoints is a subset of that, and it gives you some things, but if you want to understand it, it's going to come out of the book. So I make sure you understand it's a book thing. Even no matter who is lecturing to you, they give you information, but if it doesn't match up with the standard of the book that we use, it's not going to help you. So you want to make sure they give you information and says, is it lining up with those textbooks? In other words, okay, so we got Vimentin, connective tissue, and then that helps us with being able to determine what's going on with that process. And then fibroblast makes connective tissue. And you know what else fibroblast makes? What's that? No, that's going to be in the cell, and we're going to get to that in a minute. What else fibroblast makes? Makes fiber? I guess it would, like you smoke meal. But bottom line is, it makes what we call extracellular matrix. What is that extracellular matrix that it's going to make? Go ahead, in the back. Collagen. Absolutely. Collagen is the largest protein in the body. Most abundant. And the cell that's most abundant in the body is what? Reverse engineering. Fibroblasts. Reverse engineering. I'm not asking you that. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm like, Dr. Price asked me something. I'm just telling you exactly, lining it up. So the bottom line is, you end up having fibroblasts that make connective tissue, but to fill the connective tissue, you gotta have extracellular matrix, and the biggest one is collagen. In collagen, there's about how many types? There's a little more than 27, but 27 is what we've come up with. And you need to understand these collagens because, again, nobody's here to treat anybody who's healthy. We're here to understand the disease mechanism, but in order to understand the disease mechanism, you have to understand what normal looks like, what typical looks like. A typical male looks like this. And if you can recognize him, then you can avoid it. If you can recognize him, then you know how to approach him. And then that way you're not shocked by the things he does. You just say, that's who he is. I don't need to be a part of that. Or I do. So learn behavior, but we're gonna get there. Okay, so bottom line is you got the collagen is about 27. Collagen number 1 does what? Everything. It's in everything. 99% of it is in just about every tissue. Type 1 collagen, bones, skin, almost everything. Right? Collagen number 2, cartilage. That's the only place you see it, cartilage. Collagen number 3, what is that? Come on, people in the back. Collagen number 3? Embryo. When you say embryo, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to say? It's all connective tissue, because remember, it's collagen.
The embryo connective tissue?
Yeah, what are we trying to say?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. You just gotta bring it out you. What do we know about embryonic tissue. There's a word that they use out in the public that we throw around now. Stem cells. That's why we call it embryonic, because it can make almost anything. It can rejuvenate, it can regenerate, it can repair itself. Why am I saying this to you? Because I want you to understand that type 3 collagen is seen where there is repair. That way you're not memorizing it. You cut yourself and you're getting ready to heal. Somebody says, what collagen is going to be predominant? Type 3. When you heal and you got the scar, what collagen is predominant? Type 1. Because you healed now. Right? And remember, the most predominant collagen is type 1. Because you healed. So I'm not trying to trick you, that's why I'm telling you so you understand how that works. Right? Type 4 is for the basement membrane, and this is where we get to these junctions that we got to learn. How many junctions we got? Give me one. You got gap junction, gap teeth, gap space. What does gap junction want to give us? Communication with everything else that's going on within the cell. Right? What's another junction? Tight junction. Woo, tight. What does that mean? Ain't nothing coming through. Right? It's all locked down. Then what else? What's what? Adhering junctions? What does that mean? I'm here adhering. It means you listening to me, you following me, you're connected to me. But you know, maybe some stuff can get through. You're around. And so what is an adhering junction? It's a what?
Does it allow like small ions to pass through?
Say it again?
It allows small ions to pass
It
through?
does, and what else does it do? It makes connections with other cells of the same type. So what junction is well known to do that? Come on, people in the back. Desmosomes, exactly. Desmosomes seen all over it. You know when you were learning oral mucosa, and they had that picture of this little prickle, and they said this was the prickle layer. You know why it was the prickle layer? Because desmosomes were catching and pulling and giving that prickle appearance. I'm trying to give you structure so you don't have to memorize stuff. You understand, like, oh, that's why we get that. All right? So that's one. And what's another one? When you're not connecting cells of the same type, but cells and matrix together, what kind of junction you have there? Hemidesmosomes, half and half. That's a hemidesmosome. So cell to cell, desmosomes, adhering junctions, and cell to matrix is hemidesmosomes. See how they're coming together? Because I know you heard the class, I know it was taught to you, but none of that was making any sense. I'm trying to make it make sense. Right? Obviously, they're going to ask you some more into dealing, you know, what happens when the cell does, but at least you understand the general function of that process. And so those are the cells that when things go wrong, you have diseases that you can see. For example, has anybody ever heard of epidermolysis bullosa? I'm not saying all of you, but somebody may have heard of something like that.
It's related to the skin.
It's related to the skin? It is related to the skin. You know how? So it says epidermal, right? They give it a name. It's related to the skin because there's a collagen that keeps the skin in place. And what happens is when that collagen breaks down, the skin peels off. Desmosomes is one of those. But there's a collagen that's tied into that causes an anchoring junction, and that's why we have a bunch of other ones. So the collagens I want you to know, what about collagen number 5? Anybody know collagen number 5?
That's the ones related to the gingiva.
That's the ones related to the oral cavity that you need to know, right? Gingiva, what else? Dentin, Periodontal ligament, you need to know those. So type 1 through 5, you should understand from a dental standpoint. You should know type 7, type 17, right? You should know those, and if you know anything that has any cartilaginous defects, then you should know type 2. So I'm just getting you started. All right, so that's generally the fibroblastic cytoskeleton process. Kind of ran through that. I'll be showing some images as we come up, but I just wanted to get you through that. So then the next thing is the bone. Now the reason why I'm giving you the fibroblastic aspect, because all of that is going to be needed in order to do development in the mouth. So I got to give you a foundation. I got to get you to start somewhere, and then builds from there. So then the bone, what do we know about bone? Come on, I know y'all have bone, so y'all can give me, so let's start with basic unit is, no, that's a cell. Basic unit of bone, no, that's good, that's a cell too. Basic unit of bone, no, that's good, I'm getting somewhere, I like when they calling it out because I'm getting somewhere. All right, basic unit of bone, somebody will look it up. That's what it is. Okay, what is it? Say it again. No, not hydroxyapatite. That's a chemical structure, basic structure for making things hard, and that was good. That's a chemistry stuff. That's why you took the DAT. What is it? The osteon, basic unit of bone. You need to remember those type of things. Right? Basic unit of bone. And so that basic unit of bone is going to have something in it. What is it going to have in it? I know you're shaking your pen, but come on, tell me, what's it got in it? Not really. I mean, it has, but that's not what's in it. What's in the center? How did red blood cell get in there? It's got to have a capillary that's going to have red blood cells in it. Because the basic unit is what keeps everything alive. How do we know English? Because we get the basic unit called the alphabets. And then an alphabet gives you a word gives you a sentence gives you a paragraph gives you a chapter gives you a book. Boom. But the basic unit is coming from the alphabet. So the bone is going to be doing something. The osteon is then going to give you the, so I was seeing if somebody was going to work with me there. Not an osteoclast. It's going to give me a concentric lamina. And then it's going to give me a circumferential lamina. But in between all of that is going to be interstitial lamina. And you're building out the bone. Now, let's go to the histological microscopic piece, since we like going there. Give me the cells. Osteocyte. What's an osteocyte? What's an osteocyte? See, we just throw out words in. You don't know what that's about. It's a what? An immature bone cell? No. It is mature, but what is an osteocyte? No, osteocytes don't break down the bones. Osteocyte is locked in after bone has been formed in a little space. Can't get out. So we call that osteocyte. What space is it locked in? No, what's that space called? No, that space is called what? Starts with an L. Lacunae. Lacunae, Kuma Matata, whatever. Okay? So that's an osteocyte. It's just a cell, and I'm going to tell you what that cell once was before it became an osteocyte, but actually you're going to tell me. So what's the next cell? Nope, don't give me that one. Osteoblast. So the osteoblast, when it made the bone, got locked in and became an osteocyte. That's how that happened. What does osteoblast do? Blast. They build the blast. I'm gonna have a blast. Question. Yeah, I did it. I said all of that, but with more detail. So what I said was the osteoblast builds the bone, and then when the bone is circling around it, it can't go anywhere, and it becomes an osteocyte. That space that it's in is called a lacunae. God, you're good. I'm glad, because I'm gonna ask you that. Good. All right. And so the osteoblast is building, and the stuff it builds is what? What's that structure that it's building? Yeah, it's going to eventually become bone, but it ain't start out as bone. It's making what? Osteoid. Good. It's making osteoid, which is immature bone. Somebody said that before, so I'm just trying to bring it back to you. Right? And so now that I've built all this bone, the bone is matured, I got woven bone, I have what we call reversal lines, incremental lines of growth. I can't keep growing. I gotta have some balance. So what cell do I need to balance it out? Osteoclast. And what are the clasts doing? Bring it down. And when it breaks it down, it also creates a little space. What that hollow space is called? Anybody? Somebody in the back? Oh, you raise your hand or you stretch it? Well, you gotta raise your hand then. Come on, tell me, what's that space in between? Where osteoclast is making? Go ahead, say it. House-shaped lacunae. That's what you're gonna see, these little depressions that are coming from the osteoclast breaking down the bone. What is an osteoclast? If you were to describe it, how would you describe it? It does? So how would we describe it? That's one description. Give me some more.
Is it like a precursor cell from macrophages that breaks down bone cells?
It's a precursor to the macrophages.
That break down bone cells?
It's not really a precursor, but that's not, I like what you're saying. It is a sort of macrophage. It's its own. So it's not precursor of a macrophage, but it's its own form of macrophage. So that's very good. So then let's describe what that would be. How would we describe a macrophage? How would we describe an osteoclast? How do we describe a macrophage? How do we describe an acrophage? What is the word macrophage? Macrophage. Okay, that's good. My English is not good. It's a phagocytic cell. Got you. Macro. So break it down. It's a large phagocytic cell. We'll work on that one. Oh my goodness. All right. It's large. And so now that you know that, tell me about an osteoclast. That's good. I got it in the front. Let me hear it in the back. Say it in the back. I heard it in the front, but I want the back to say it too, because I heard somebody talking.
Is it a small phagocytic cell?
No, it's not small.
Okay.
So go ahead now.
Multinuclear
Oh, see, I know eventually come here. I can't figure it out. But say it.
multinucleated phagocytic cell.
There you go. It's multinucleated. You need to know that because macrophages are multinucleated. Why is it multinucleated? Critical thinking. Let's figure it out. Why would it be multinucleated? We said something about nucleus earlier, right? When we said nucleus, something, something, something. So why would this be multinucleated? Because what?
So they have
No. I couldn't hear what you have to say. Don't be you got me anticipating on the edge and you be like, drop it.
I said because it goes all over the body, but I feel like that's not.
Oh, it goes over, well, it is all over the body, but that's not quite what it is, but that's good. But don't say, never mind, I want to hear it. All right, so what is it?
Because then there's multiple spots.
Why does it have so many nuclei? It needs energy. It's got to eat. I'm hungry. And when you eat, don't you get energy? Right? Except for when you're in these classes, you get tired. You're like, oh my goodness, I need to go to sleep. So you can get some energy, because that's a whole nother mechanism that I could break down to you. The reason why you eat it and you get tired and you go to sleep, because you have this parasympathetic phase that's actually going on, so you can produce insulin to get rid of the hypoglycemic effect that's in your body. So it can enter into the cell, going through that whole process of glucagon 6 to glucagon 3, so you can pyruvate acid, so you can coagulate A, so you can go through the scrub cycle to give you ATP. That's why this is happening. If you don't know, now you know. Right? So that's what's happening through this whole process. Being sleepy and tired is not a bad thing. Just needs to do it at the right time. And while you're in middle school, it ain't no right time. It's just hard. All right? No doubt about it. It's hard. This ain't for the faint-hearted. Believe you me. Believe you me. My head was hurting when I started. Ooh, it still hurts sometimes, but not as much as it used to be. I thought I had a tumor or something, because this is hurting. All this information they trying to throw at me. So the bottom line is that's where you go. So macrophages needs a lot of energy. It's got to be big, and it's got to eat up all that clone, and that's where. So you got the 3 cells, right? Cytes, blasts, clasts. And it's osteo because it belongs to bone. Because we got site cells and clasts in other tissues as well. We may not call them clasts all the time. We call them macrophages or something like that. Right? Those are the 3 cells that are going to make the bone, and then we got the basic unit of bone, which is, and then it leads to a what? No, concentric lamella, because that's going to be the basic unit of bone. The osteon is a concentric lamella. It's the center, small little tube-like structure that has a capillary in the middle, and that capillary is called a what? What is that capillary called? So with H. No, that's the class that's giving you the depression. Now I'm talking about the osteon and the capillary that's in the center that's going to give you the red blood cells, because a capillary in a tissue does what? What does blood do to tissue? What's that word? Nutrition. And it gives you oxygen. Because don't you need oxygen? Breathe, baby, breathe. We take in oxygen and we give off what? CO2, carbon dioxide. You know why we do that? Huh? Say that again, louder. So our body doesn't become acidic. So why are we drinking soda? You better think about it. Okay, but it tastes good though, right? I'm gonna go for what tastes good, even if it's no good. That's what happens, catch you every time. But he looked good. Yeah, he was no good. But she was all that. Yeah, well, she caught you now. All right, so the bottom line is be mindful of what you're working with. So again, and then we give it to the plants. The plants use it to cause chlorophyll, and so they can grow and build up and give us this whole thing so that we don't end up with global warming. I think this room has global warming in it, but that's a different story, right? And so in that whole process, we all work together, but we're learning it like it's all separated. But it all comes together. All right, so you got those 3 cells and the basic unit. So what sits in the center? Or what is it? A Haversian canal. That's right. Basic unit, a capillary in the middle, is a Haversian canal. That's the name of it. Okay, pause for a second. Am I making any sense to you?
Yes.
Right? Say it again?
Can you repeat the last version one?
Yeah, I was saying that the osteon, which is a concentric lamella, has a capillary in the center, and we call it a Haversian canal. Right? But I'm trying to make it make sense, like it flows and it comes together. It's not just stuff being given to you with names, and you're like, what is that? Okay? All right. So, bone time. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up the bone and then I'm gonna move on to the next piece. Cause they don't give me much time. You know, they just cut my time and they don't want you to learn this stuff, but I'm gonna give it to you. All right, so you got those 3 cells, creates the bone, the concentric lamella, then you have the interstitial lamella, but the outer portion is called the circumferential lamella, and that lamella is gonna be very important to you. That's why I'm telling you, you're gonna need to understand that. So now that you got that bone, now the bone has to grow, and there's 3 levels of bone growth, 3 types. What are they? Endochondrial, ossification or formation or modeling, whatever you want to call it. And then you have intermembranous, and then you have sutral. Sutral is for those big head people, you know, just got sutures right in the center and allow the brain to get big, and it allows not a lot of movement, but it allows for those organs like your eyes and your brain to grow. Endochondrial is for, I mean, it's seen in almost most bones, but it's recognized as long bones, you know, because at the end of the long bones, we have these 3 structures that you learn in anatomy. What's it called? The epiphyseal, metaphyses, and the diaphyses, right? You learn all that stuff. And so at the end of the epiphyseal plate is cartilage, and that's what gives you growth. And some people go real tall, and some people just grow like me. Okay? And so when they grow a little less than me, like this, you got a name for it. Anybody know the name for the people that grow a little less than me? What's it called? Dwarfism? Okay, what's the scientific term? I told it to you. You don't even realize I told it to you. Yes, little people like that movie. No, we don't call them that. Oh my goodness, what, you trying to hurt my man?
Was it 800 plus?
Oh my goodness.
You know what 800?
What's it?
800 plus?
They achondroplasia. That's what our little people are. We call them the all right? So bottom line. And that is considered what kind of inheritance? Ooh, see, I'm gonna hit you with it. What is it? I heard it over here. Say it again. No, I heard it somewhere else. I heard it though. Dominant, autosomal dominant. Achondroplasia is autosomal dominant. All right, keep up with remembering that. That's why see how I'm tying it all in? I'm trying to get you to tie it all in. All right, so good. Now that we got the bone. All right, it's a little warm. Oh my goodness. They're about to bring the heat on.
A lot of.
Oh man, global warming is for real. All right. I don't know what's on there. I don't know. They just messed me up. But what I'm gonna do, it's gonna take 5 minutes because I need to get my cooling system working. Get my stuff up, and then we'll start the next piece because now maybe the general foundation. All right, and then we're gonna cover tooth development and periodontium. All right, so 5 minutes, and then we're gonna get you going.
Ha ha ha.